the founder of the Nomadness Tribe. Her website is nomadnesstv.com. A bit about Evita. After graduating with her BA in television and film from Iona College, Evita hit the world running, creating, and within weeks of graduation, she attended the New York City Film Academy, studying digital filmmaking in Paris, France, and La Femis Film School. There, the seed for Nomadness was planted after receiving acclaim for her films. Through the duration of her first taste of Europe, am I on point? Just let me know.
You're good.
Okay. At age 21, she traveled to 12 countries on 3 different continents. She has since lived in New York, Paris, Japan, and Thailand. After concluding a year and a half of traveling around the world while videotaping her life on the Nomadness TV web series, Evie came back to New York on a mission to bridge her love of production and a newfound need for travel. In September 2011, she created the Nomadness Travel Tribe, who has have the similarity of urban backgrounds and stylistic when traveling. At present, the Nomadness Tribe has over 3,000 members, boasting over 4,000 passport stamps from nearly 36 continents. She was named Clutch Magazine's 11 Black Women, inspiring us to travel. And she is also working on a new show for the Nomadness TV. Let's welcome Miss Evita Robbins. Hey. Now, normally I do the moderation where I ask her questions and we talk, but what I'll do is I'll give you the floor for a moment since you're here working it out. See those guns? Working it out on our behalf, just to kind of tell everyone a little bit about what the Nomadness Tribe is beyond the kind of scope of the bio that I talked about, what it means to kind of develop a community online. I noticed, anyone here from the Nomadness Tribe? Give a shout out.
Hey.
Okay,
Got a few of us.
great. So you made the call and they showed up. So tell us a little bit more about the Nomadness Tribe.
It really stemmed from, actually, let me kind of reverse back. I was living in Japan for a year, right? This was my second time moving abroad as an expat, my first time farthest away, longest duration of time, teaching English. And I realized 10 months into the 12 months that I was out there, nobody was gonna come visit me. I love my friends, my dear friends and my family, but nobody was taking that trek. It was super expensive. It's like a 13-hour flight. A lot of people are like, look, I love you, but I'm gonna love you from home. So what I did is I created Nomadness TV as a way to bridge what I was doing with people back home and really using social media as the focal point. As you said, my background is in television production, so I had editing equipment, I had a really rinky-dink camera, but I had an idea and I said, you know what, I'm in Japan. Everything I do here is different. Going to the bathroom is different. Their toilet seat is warm and has music and a bidet. Like, it's a completely different experience. So I said, let me bring what I'm doing out here to friends and family back home. And as I say on the college tour, you know, one of the things I ask the students is, what's the easiest way to bring your experience when you're abroad to the people back home? And nowadays you hear the Instagram, you know, it's getting very specific with platforms. But everything that they say really falls under the realm of social media. I was a Facebook head, so I did a lot of stuff and still do. The tribe functions day to day right now on Facebook as a closed Facebook group. It's invitation only. It's like this little underground travel cult of, you know, minorities. But it all started from me really wanting to share my experiences. So when I came home, I moved to Thailand. I came home, got the itch, left a couple months later. Moved to Thailand because I got casted on another web series called Jet Set Zero, which is like the real world meets travel. They pick 4 strangers, and these strangers have to collectively come up with a country that they want to move to, and they have 90 days to find a job and a place to live, and we all went out there broke. We moved to Thailand with like no money. So I was in Thailand for a couple months, and when I came home, I went through severe, you know, withdrawal, that reverse culture shock, which if you've ever traveled and been abroad for a while, you know that there is a serious thing and it's a legit reverse culture shock. You have to get used to home. And so during that time, I was like, you know, what am I gonna do to help me get through this? And I was like, there's gotta be a community of people out there that travel the way I travel. You know, for instance, in 2011, I know we'll get into crowdfunding and Kickstarters, but my first Kickstarter campaign, the first of 3 now, was to fund my web series, and I shot in Berlin. And part of that time in Berlin is we camped out in Ferropolis, Germany, which is about an hour and a half outside of Berlin, at a hip hop festival. There's a hip hop festival called Splash Hip Hop Festival, and if I brought this up, how many of you have heard of Splash Hip Hop Festival? By hands. I saw 2. Yeah, you know, that's the type of thing, like I wanna bring things that relate to our culture and our style and, you know, and in a way like our swag, and bring it on an international level and expose people to travel, but in a way that they feel that they can relate to it. And that's really the core of the mission with Nomadness, and therefore I created the Nomadness Travel Tribe as a way to hone that in. And the first 100 people from the tribe were my friends. The one prerequisite to get into the group is you have to have at least one passport stamp. Hence my like in your face t-shirt today, which is a part of our Ego series. We have merchandise. But it started off really from, oh, it says, I have more passport stamps than you. It started off with my friends and family that qualified with having been out the country at least once and had that stamp. And now, you know, it started in September 2011. We're now in March, and we have over 4,300 members online in an invitation-only group. And it's been an amazing, amazing thing to see flourish.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Before we get a little bit deeper into your story and also kind of looking at the process, we do have our other invited guests here. Come on up, Tembisa.
I'm so sorry. I feel like I'm late. Hey.
So, because we have some challenges with AV, I want to kind of give you a little bit of background. We do have, these young ladies are phenomenal when it comes to production in AV. So I'm hoping at some point that we do get some support with that so that you guys can see a little bit of their work. I'm going to try to embellish and paint as vivid a picture as possible, but I know I'm not going to do it justice, but hopefully it'll be enough to kind of start with a framework for understanding why we invited them as guests. Tembisa Meshach is a 5-time Telly Award winner and Promax BDA Gold Award-winning writer who has served in the entertainment industry for over 18 years, spanning the areas of magazine publishing, recorded music, and technology and advertising. As a senior copywriter at Sony Music and 2-time NARM Award winner, her campaigns contributed to the sale of more than 150 million albums for artists including Lauryn Hill, Will Smith, Beyonce, Wyclef Jean, Maxwell, Bow Wow, and more. The former Gavin rap editor has also written for Honey, Essence.com, Launch.com, and served as contributing editor for The Hotness Blaze magazine. She has also contributed to Anthology, as well as Sometimes Rhythm, Sometimes Blues, edited by Taji Smith, and 25 hip-hop icons. She has also contributed to the success of almost every single BET award show that's in existence, right? You were there at the beginning. And so we invited her here to bring her expertise working with the large networks to try to funnel some of that insight into how a small company can act as a big company. So let's welcome Tembisa. So the spotlight's on you. So we're gonna we've got the bright lights on you, and we're gonna give you an opportunity to share a little bit about your practice. I know that you're also doing film production as well. And so if you can kind of give a little bit of overview of your background and why you love media and why you think it's relevant to small companies. Take it away.
Wow, well hello. This is a really nice group. How y'all doing?
Good. Thank you.
Good. Fresh off one job coming into this evening, so apologize for dipping in after you guys all got settled, but I look forward to networking, talking a little bit afterward. As far as my background goes, I started out writing, just writing in my diaries as a kid and journals later on as a young adult, writing opinion pieces about hip-hop as it was going on in the Bay Area while I was in college. I'm a graduate of Mills College in Oakland, California. I'm originally from Los Angeles. And it went from that, from sort of documenting my own thoughts and feelings to documenting what was going on in the marketplace. And I wasn't really looking for money, I just wanted to express myself. At that point I was in school and I had a job through work study, which was my internship. So between the freelance writing that I was doing, which was literally free, because all I was getting really was the byline and the opportunity to just keep writing. But even that ended up being compensation in the sense that it put me in front of people who gave me opportunities to write and actually get paid as an editor. So between that, writing for sort of club magazines, hip hop magazines in the Bay Area, and my job, which was being an office and contracts manager at a small booking agency, we represented artists like the late great Gil Scott-Heron, Etta James, Stanley Turrentine, Gary Cologne, Ernestine Anderson, Shirley Bourne. So before I got into hip hop, and I was dealing with like heavies and jazz and funk and blues and R&B. So, and that was while I was a sophomore in college. So I guess I was about 18 at that point. So.
That was like last month, right?
Yeah. Right.
There you go.
So that steered me all the way into entertainment, even though I was an international relations and ethnic studies major and student. And the writing has been the continual theme across all the different platforms. So it started out with, physical paper magazines, went on to advertising, working at the trade magazine, Gavin. And there I had a weekly column where I was talking about hip hop music, but in an industry context to bring together people on the record side with the folks on the radio side who a lot of the time, even though it was a symbiotic relationship, were very much at odds because, the label's directive is not always the DJ's directive or the program director's objective. So I did that from 1993 to 1998. And during that time, I had the opportunity to break some artists with, the opportunities that I got to do cover stories. Artists like D'Angelo, Guns N' Harmony, Lady of Rage, Common. I gave them all their first sort of national trade covers. And then from there, started to do advertising. And because I had the personal relationships and the deep understanding of hip hop culture, because it's just who I am, I looked attractive to Sony, and they were looking to have someone come in and write the campaigns for, this young artist who had really set quite a level of anticipation with the group that she was in, the Fugees, and now she was doing a solo album called Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, and they couldn't afford to take that campaign lightly because the score had sold 20 million records, which wasn't something they had expected. So my first project coming to Sony, which is what brought me to New York, was to write the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill campaign. So that campaign went on for 2 years. It was TV, radio, print, online was emerging at that time. And it just kept unfolding because the record kept doing phenomenally well. The 10 Grammy nominations, the 5 wins, the 7 singles, it just went on.
Yeah.
So from that, I felt like that was like the perfect, that was like a dream opportunity because here I was working on somebody who I knew personally, whose music I felt a deep connection to, and who I, being inside a corporate structure that didn't necessarily fully understand or fully reflect hip hop all the time, as well intentioned as people who worked at the label might have been, I felt like I had a special charge in maintaining the artist's integrity on such a global scale. I remember traveling to Spain on one of those few vacations I had for my wedding anniversary and seeing the campaign in Spanish. And I'm thinking to myself, well, don't they have people in all these territories to do what I do? No, I was doing the campaign and they were just translating it or sort of adjusting it culturally for that territory. And it just hit me like, oh, I'm representing this project and these artists' voices for the whole world. So that's how it got started. The writing just fed me into entertainment, and the opportunity to work directly with talent at the booking agency, helped to kind of seal the deal as far as like, yes, this is what I want to do.
Great, thank you. And that actually helps frame the conversation tonight. Just a bit about why we're here. Vanguard Consulting Group is a leading entrepreneurial content provider. And one of our key philosophies is how do companies accelerate into the marketplace. And there's a lot of value in terms of your expertise in the sense that most startup companies lack the funding, like a big network, to really push into the marketplace. By a show of hands, how many of you in the audience actually are starting your business or in the early stages of running your company? Okay, so that's really our audience. So as a company and as a philosophy, we believe in the low cost, high yield nature of online marketing as well as media. And so the reason why they're here is because when you talk about a couple of pillars that we're going to talk about, I think your particular expertise in managing artists and managing brands, I think is relevant to anyone in the audience that their brand is their business. They are their business. So what I'd like to really talk about tonight is some real practical strategies for someone that believes that they are a brand, and how do they expand themselves or push themselves out in the marketplace. You mentioned traditional media, but these particular companies don't necessarily have access to that. So we'd like to get some insight into your thinking. And for Evita, as we start to expand the conversation, we really like to look at the power of an audience, the power of a tribe. I like the fact that you kind of characterized your followers as a tribe, that there is kind of the symbiotic relationship that's starting online but actually is evident offline. So you get people to follow you around the world. Is that something that you guys would be interested in hearing a little bit more about?
Yes.
Active participation as well.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So that's really what we're going to gear towards. So we're not going to talk too long because I also want to open up the floor for our folks to ask very specific questions. You mentioned crowdfunding, so that definitely is going to be a talk about it. So I'll start with you, Tembisa. As you were working for the network and you were thinking and you're presented with this project, you have a brand, you have an artist, and the goal is to push them out into the marketplace. What are your metrics as you're looking at, how do you measure success? Is it airplay or is it something measurable that actually our small companies can actually have access to and likewise use the same metrics in their campaigns?
Well, if you're talking about music, at this point, it's airplay, but it's also, views and clicks for video and for additional content or, content that artists are shooting just independently, or even if it's being produced by, a partner that they may have, whether that's a distributor or a label, it's made to look like it's being produced independently and just from them to you. So I would say that, the SEO and the clicks and the views and the hits are just as important as the, ratings from Mediabase as far as how many spins an artist got, things of that nature. With respect to television, we get a daily report card of the Nielsen rating, so that's the measure of success, by far. In the social media space, of course, there is weight placed on the level of activity on the various Facebook pages and the various Twitter handles that, the network's properties have. So BET.com engages tremendously because African Americans tend to over-index on technology. So, that is the case with BET.com. Like, our users are rabid, the unique visitors are exponential. Someone from digital would really have to be here to break that down, but that's part of why BET got into the business of making apps, because the hunger was there. So they created the 106 & Park app. They have apps now for the Hip Hop Awards, for the BET Awards, because our users wanted more than just the site engagement.
So there's a couple things I want to kind of dial back. You mentioned the idea of properties, and it's interesting. Most of us missed the real estate boom, didn't we? We live in New York. It's hot, overly priced, but what we do have access to is online properties, right? So
Well, the
our,
bubble popped, so
The
now's
bubble
the
popped,
time
right.
to get back in.
some neighborhoods,
Depending
not in
on
every
where you want to invest and where you want to play.
Totally. And so the idea here is it recommended that a company really start to look at online properties more than just their website? How do you approach having multiple properties? I'll throw this to you, Evita. In terms of Nomandis TV, but that's your website, but you're also using other properties to kind of cultivate participation in the brand. How are you approaching that?
I mean, with me, it was kind of a seamless transition only because we started on Facebook. That was really the platform. It was about taking this idea in this community that was building on a platform like Facebook and bumping it up another notch. You know, No Madness TV, before it was the website that it is right now, it was my blog. You know, it was merely me. Before it was we, it was very Evita-centric. And it was all about me kind of showcasing other people's experiences, but giving them a platform. One of the things that I've found is that when the conversation, especially in building your audience, when the conversation is just from the top down, meaning you talking to your audience, it's cool to start off that way, but what you are going to want as a goal is to have there be linear communication amongst your community that you don't have to be involved in all the time. And that's one of the things that was really great about building the tribe is like now, if I was to tap into them right now, like literally I can tell you there's at least 5 conversations going on right now as we speak. And if I was to tap into it now and pull it up on a screen, there are a ton of threads going on Facebook that I can chime in if I want to, I can leave it alone. It doesn't all depend on me being right there for it to function on a day-to-day basis. And you will want with your audience to get to that point where I remember I started off on a fan page. On a fan page, that's just me talking to you guys about what I'm doing. And like, you know, I think I'm cool and everything, but at a certain point in time, you're gonna wanna engage with one another, and that's what makes that cross communication at some point so I think instrumental when you're building an audience. And you know, one of our biggest things right now in going for, you know, funding and investors is No Madness Travel Tribe is gonna be phasing off of Facebook in 2013. We have been building our own social media network. You know, so that is a big undertaking, but it's something that we've been building for months and, you know, we'll continue to execute. And from there, you have platforms like, you know, we're simultaneously thinking like, okay, we need this for the social media network. What type of app is like a seamless, you know, parallel, exactly, extension of the program so that mobile works. And we're thinking about all these things at the same time where it's gonna be one big push, but there's a number of components to it when it happens.
And I think you kind of touched on something very interesting. Content as a business model. You mentioned actually getting funding, but primarily what you're doing is you're producing content. And I think that's interesting for small companies now. It's an interesting paradigm to transition in because most of our practitioners here they started a small business around the thing they do well. So they built a business around their core competencies, around products and services. But now we're looking at another paradigm in terms of how do we engage customers by creating content and then, you know, to kind of coin your term, when you develop that, you're now positioning that content and it's valuable. And so I think that's interesting that we're tapping in that. You're also talking about mobile. And I think that's a whole new landscape altogether for companies to kind of look at. And so we're going to definitely jump into that. But I want to transition back to you, Tembisa. So as a writer, you know, one of the things as far as content is concerned, creative content going on around the brand, how did you approach that? Was it just try to put people in their best light? Were you using PR? What were the online strategies as far as the platforms that you use to filter out the messaging around the artists, around the projects that you're working on?
Well, I think probably I would try to use my own product as an example because I was challenged with using my own expertise, but then not having the machinery that the network afforded me.
Yes,
to use it, right?
actually, and that's
So
what we're waiting for the AV
it's
for to show
literally
that.
like me as sitting in the seat where you are, because when I became a filmmaker, you know, it's like paying dues doesn't go away. It's just a matter of are the dues worthy of your life, right? So, you know, as a filmmaker, after 20 years in the entertainment industry, I'm starting out as a new filmmaker, right? So I have a short film called The Divorce Counselor. I have no publicist. I have no budget. Like, I'm trying to do this out of my pocket in terms of, you know, not just writing, producing, and directing the film, but then marketing and promoting it. So thank God for the interwebs, because you can get so much done as, you know, a one-woman show or one-man band, but at a certain point, once you reach a critical mass, that's when you have to start delegating and kind of figuring out, okay, well, this is now getting bigger than me. Who am I gonna, you know, involve or engage to take it further, because that's their core competencies.
Right.
So for myself, I started with my own personal networks and just let everybody know that I had finished the film and that I was gonna go on to the festival circuit, which let everyone know that they weren't gonna see it anytime soon, because some festivals, you're disqualified if you release your film online before,
Right.
it gets to a festival. So, I came out of post-production at the end of 2012, and at the end of 2011, and I spent all of 2012 submitting to festivals. I didn't have an agent. I mean, it's very much like the politics that go on for getting awards for the Grammys or the Oscars or whatever. You'll have an agent or a representative kind of lobbying for you within the Academy or within NARAS or whoever the influencers are, and then those people will do a campaign on your behalf for your consideration, whether it's ads or emails or whatever. I didn't have any of that. So I used my personal networks, which, after 20 years in the industry, happen to be considerable. And then I, worked on getting the festival circuit thing happening through Without a Box, which was very convenient because, you can submit to all the festivals in one place, pay, one time instead of doing multiple submissions throughout. And you can post your film as an online secure screener, so you don't have to keep manufacturing DVDs and sending them out. And I don't have time for that. I got a husband and 2 kids. So all through 2012, the film was not getting picked up by any festivals. Probably nepotism, because people are gonna put their homies in the films or they know people or whatever. Yes, that goes on, fine. I understand that. I'm cool with it. I didn't take it personally. As a creative, if you can't handle rejection, you're in the wrong business. So, I said, all right, cool. I'm gonna submit to Pan African Film Festival. If I don't get in, then I can, keep people who are chomping at the bit to see this movie at bay, and I can show them the movie, because I will finally be done with the circuit. Well, the last festival that I entered in was the one that I got into. So, the Divorce Counselor will premiere at Pan African in February of this year, and then that gave me the opportunity to then do press around it, because now I have a story. Nobody's seen the film, but now I've got into Pan African. Here's somebody who's been in the business 20 years, but is now transitioning from music to advertising and TV and now film, taking everything she's learned,
So let me stop
and
you
that
right there.
becomes the story.
So let me stop right there. So you're getting ready to so as I'm hearing this, and I appreciate you really sharing that, that you've got this big network experience,
Yeah.
working with the security of the network's reach, their capacity to get your messaging out. And then when you decide to do something that's unique to yourself and your passion, which I think a lot of us here can identify with, you don't necessarily have that same security. And so
Right.
now you're trying to leverage what you know into the context of what you love without having the resources necessarily, the same resources. to
Yeah,
do
you
it.
just become resourceful in a different way.
Resourceful, I like that.
You just start to look, okay, well, if money isn't there, what compensation can I offer? What opportunity can I offer my fellow business people that doesn't take advantage of them, doesn't, it's not you trying to get over on them.
So you used the
but-
word barter before?
Oh, man, that's the African way. It's absolutely harder now. So there's a lot of that goes on. So with Pan African, that sort of set the stage, so that allowed me to get press. So then I got a review in Shadow and Act, I got some press leading up to the screenings and a couple online outlets. And that was really all I needed, considering I have pulses to get into
Right.
Yahoo, Shadow and Act, it was like, okay, good, that was millions of impressions just off, people that I knew and people who were interested in the work and who supported me and who, of course, for whom the story was relevant to them as the outlet, right? So, it wasn't just a solid, it also gave their outlet value by being able to highlight the film. So from there, I said, okay, well now I'm gonna produce the New York premiere of the film because I did a partnership with Free. I don't know if you're familiar with her, media personality from 106. We overlapped in terms of our working at BET, but she was in radio. She just recently finished her stint as the morning show personality in DC on PGC. But she has her own site. True to what everybody here is doing, she had her own online and social media empire that she's building called freezeworld.com. So we partnered for her to webcast the film exclusively on her site. And that's gonna happen April 13th of this year. it coincides with my 16th wedding anniversary. I know I don't look that old. But, you know, the divorce counselor is sort of born out of one of my couples counseling experiences. And so I wanted to kind of normalize therapy and give it a little humor, a little heart. And so on my wedding anniversary, we're going to webcast the film. But before that, we're going to do the New York premiere here on April 10th at the New York Film.
But there's a couple of good things that I'm hearing. You're basically staying very proactive in leveraging the reach of other collaborators online. So kind of using, you know, the goal for the film is distribution. You're basically using Free's reach and pushing it out through that channel.
And giving her the opportunity to have exclusive content. Because what
Okay.
I'm saying to her is, I'm going to let you have it and just you. Like, I'm not even putting it on TembisaandShaka.com. I'm putting it on Free's World.
Right.
And for me, like, that gives her the exclusivity, but it also gives me the access to the eyeballs.
So that cross-pollination.
And that's the bartering.
That's it. Good stuff.
Right?
Can I add something to that
Please.
too? The tribe is a network, as I said, of over 4,300 members at this point. One of the things, and I'm gonna shout you out, Jason, this is one of the guys that's on the business end, that's part of my core team, and also a member. One of the things that he really pushes within the confines of the group is everything we need is there. We were written about in the July issue of Ebony Magazine last year. They showcased our Panama trip. It was the first trip that we had ever done. Tamika Anderson, you may be from Tamika, is one of our avid members in the group and is always hooking us up. And that was not a barter system, but it was, listen, I am a writer and I have a travel piece that needs to get done for Ebony. I'm actually one of the people that went in on your first trip. We're gonna be covering it for Ebony. And I remember getting that phone call at 9 o'clock in the morning, freaking out. Because this is like, I always say my status on Facebook every once in a while is, for somebody who doesn't have any PR, I got some damn good PR.
Right.
And a lot of it is because I turned to my network. One of the quotes that they took from me in Ebony is that I treat the tribe as if it's an international mafia. And I said, yeah, that's how it is. Keep it in the family. Keep the money in the family. If you need somebody to do a flyer for you, if you need somebody to build, you know, a website for you, if you need somebody to go pick up trash somewhere, there is somebody in the tribe within this network that can do that. And I now have my own PR just through merely reaching out to people who already have a relationship with the tribe because they love it on their own. I don't have to sell them on the story. I don't have to sell them on, you know, who I am and what's been done. They're a part of it. They already build into it and they contribute to it. Therefore, naturally, they're gonna wanna do whatever it's gonna take to help it grow and go further. So in essence, what I did in building my own community, I built my own PR team, and now it's about using it to branch out and get more eyes and ears around. And if you can do that and create what you need, manifest what you need through what you're building, you're definitely onto something.
Well, let's get a little bit more granular with that. So, how do we build that, right? Let's look at the how do we? How did you get from, you know, tribe member 1 to tribe member 100? You know, what's the time investment? What's the financial investment? How do we make this? How do we kind of plot out the steps to do that? And at what point did you realize, wow, this is actually something that's developing greater than what I intended
It took
initially?
me 2 months. I started the tribe in September 2011. At that point in time, I was still freelancing in TV, right? Side note, I was actually an intern at Sony when she was working at Sony. Yeah, so this is interesting. There's a whole lot going on up here in this panel. It's
But
not
it just
being
shows
said.
you like how
You never know
how
how
interconnected
things
the networks are.
intertwine. I have known of this woman and just revered her. I've reached out to her for help, you know, through when I was living out in Japan. It's been that, you know, so just side note. So a little
Yeah, she
geeked
hit
out
me
up
up
here.
like, yo, I have this concept, I wanna do this international travel media thing. What do you think? And I was like, yo, this is dope, you know, keep going. I think the best thing to do is to just experience
Yeah.
what it is that you want to promote and what you want people
Yeah.
to evangelize. So you living in Japan is perfect, like go do that, absorb that, write that, share that, and then,
You have to be your message.
yeah.
That's to me thing. Like it's one thing to say I want to create something. I trust what my team comes up with because we are our demographic. Therefore, what we come up with are things that we want and things that we need. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what an 80-year-old, you know, woman needs because I don't know. And I'm not gonna sit here and for the sake of money, try to fulfill some gap that I have no personal attachment to. This all started with my passion. And to me, that's something I always go back to. So to me, if I had to give you like the first thing on the checklist that you need to look at, it needs to be what your passion is and make sure that it's consistent. Because when you're broke, putting all your money into this, or when you're tired because you're not getting any sleep, someone's gonna have to get you through those days. And when I started, I was freelancing. It took me 2 months to see how fast the tribe was moving. Again, this is invitation only. This isn't even an open group. And within 3 months, we had already hit 1,000 members. And our first group trip, I had no interest in, I still don't have an interest in becoming a travel agent, but I had no interest nor insight to say that I was gonna be organizing group trips. That came because they wanted it. And therefore, I had to let it grow organically and be honest with what was going on. So I said, you know what, this is something that we're gonna have to do. I'll see if I can organize this. And Panama, I said, either this is gonna go amazingly well or everything that I created is gonna fall apart before my eyes and I'm gonna just have to get through this week. But it went according to plan, if not better. And so for me, I would say that would definitely be the first thing, on that list is just really, making sure that from the top to bottom. And my freelance contract ended in December of 2011, and instead of looking for another job, I went on unemployment for the first time in my life. And I have not worked for another person since.
Let's get it. I love it.
So I just want to answer your question about brands
Sure.
and branding. You kind of came up, but then, just I want to get back to that. And what Davida said is perfect because she had an idea and a vision for what she wanted to present, for what she thought her brand was. But it wasn't until she brought that to the market and to the audience that some of it was reflected back and some of it was rejected.
Right.
And so what we have to recognize as business people and stewards of our brands is that we have an idea of who we think we are, but you are not branded until your market or your audience tells you who you are. Okay, so that's what it means to be branded, is for someone to anoint you with the principles that best reflect your product, your service, your contribution. Okay, so if you think you're X and your audience says Y, don't argue with the customer. You are Y. And if you want to continue to be X, that's fine, but just know that may not be your profit center. That might be your loss leader, or that might be your passion project. That might be the thing that you do just because you aren't going to be able to function if you don't get to do whatever that thing is. But don't neglect Y.
Yeah, I'm super excited because
Super serve Y. If
Yeah.
that's what they're asking for, just give it to them.
I'm super excited because I'm seeing people shift in their seats as you're talking, and I know things that they've heard in the classes that we teach, things that they've come across. It's simple stuff, right? It's simple
Right.
stuff, but when you hear it again, it becomes rehearsed in your thinking, and you realize your best business strategy is right in front of your face.
Well, I'm not saying that, you're not who you think you are. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not asking you to change yourself. I'm just saying be open to what your audience, what your market, what the people who are going to be generating revenue
Right.
for you and with you, what they are looking for.
It's called being responsive. Absolutely.
I've declared
Absolutely.
myself to be, the bridge between commerce and creativity. Like, that's who I am in my career. And literally that has manifested from working inside huge corporate systems to help people who are completely outside of that corporate system but connected to it. People like Nas and Dead Prez. Like, me getting to write their advertising campaigns, like, I am that bridge.
Right.
Because Stick and Nas, they don't want to be in that building. You know what I'm saying? Like, they go up in there and they're like mad about it. I was texting Nas his scripts. He didn't want to come in there. So, and he didn't even want a voiceover. Like, that's how uncorporate Nas is. He's like, you know what? I want to voice my own commercials because
Right.
no one else can speak for me like me.
Right, right.
So, once you create your personal mission statement, that is going to be what it's going to be because that's who you say you are. But then once you put that out there, if you start to see some other action or some other sort of pushback, like, yeah, you're that and that's good, but did you know that this is actually really great? Don't fight that. Don't resist that.
And understand that those opinions are gonna come. Everybody's gonna have opinions, especially if you're trying to build an audience. Let me tell you, there are days where I wish Facebook had a big red button where I just feel like, not today, okay? Because people are gonna start volunteering their opinions to you, and that's when you really have to go back to what your mission is and understand that you can listen to all this stuff, be a sponge, but you don't have to internalize
And distill.
everything. and make sure that whatever you do take on, somewhere along the lines it fits. Because this is the thing, if it works and it's supposed to be, it's not gonna be like sticking a square peg through a round hole. It's gonna make sense, and you're gonna be like, wow, I never thought of it that way. That's gonna be most likely the reaction that you have, instead of it being something where it's like, you're trying to fit, A to Z, and there's just like nothing in between to get you there.
But I think that's a great point to highlight, because part of the challenge, as far as the entry point into social, is the risk that you take, that you're almost letting go some control of your brand.
Oh, you
right?
have to, and I'm a control freak.
Because you're engaging, you're literally, it's kind of a courageous thing, right? Because you're engaging people and you're asking them for their honest opinion. And so once they give it to you, now what do you do?
Now here's the trick. What you find out as you grow too is even if you don't take the advice that they give you to heart, what I have found, it's not even that people want you to adopt what they're telling you, they want to know you're listening. If you let them know that you are listening to them, that a lot of the times will do a lot of the work for you, especially if it's something where you're dealing with a group that is thousands of members big. Because after a certain point, just logically, you're not going to be able to hear everything if everyone is talking at the same time. But if you can somehow make a way, whether it's anything from an email that they can send suggestions to, we have polls that we throw up so that people see it. And you know what? For instance, we have a country poll where we ask people in the tribe, where would you like to see the next trip? And it would be a roll call of like 20 different countries. And you know what? We hadn't popped that thing up since I think September of last year. We popped it up, and like 5 of the top ones, we've already been on trips, or they're scheduled. So it's one of those things where if they can see over time that you're actually listening, that in itself will do a lot of the work for you.
So let's do this. Let's break in here. I want to kind of transition to the audience, because I know you guys have some excellent questions that you want to ask these two phenomenal ladies. Let's actually give them a round of applause, too. They really brought some time here. I'm going to kind of do a rapid fire answer for you. So it seems like you guys, you have the expertise and you're fully invested. Let's say we've got a business here, a dry cleaner, right? They're in the store, it's a brick and mortar, and what they do is dry cleaning. What is your recommendation as far as the time investment, and does it make sense for that dry cleaner owner to develop an audience or a tribe of people that are looking for the kind of organic cleaners that they use in dry cleaner? What do you recommend? Because I think that's the challenge that people are trying to figure out. Social media is so much. How much time do I invest versus the time that I have to deliver? Just real quick, couple short answers, and then we're going to jump to the audience.
Well, this is a small business, it's not like multiple chains and all over the country.
Mom and pops. We got
Okay.
mom and pops here.
Okay. What I would say is that since social media and the internet are global and what you're doing is very local, that it might be worth attacking the internet on a very local level, whether that's, offering incentives for your customers to write reviews or to engage in things like Yelp, or, if you're an eatery, Zagat's, or wherever, that sort of feedback is happening. Like, I would say just keep it as local and as personal as you can. And if you want to be on Facebook and Twitter, I don't see a reason not to be on there, but just know that, that net is casting far wider than your actual, fulfillment is, so it's like, how much benefit are you really gonna get from that?
So it makes sense to kind of identify what the platform is, who the audience is at the end of it, and then choose according to what you do.
Yeah, and I also think it's important to connect digitally, but within your community. So if you're a dry cleaner in Brooklyn or in the Bronx or whatever, then you go to those community streams where those conversations are already happening, and insert yourself, connect, let people know who you are, create awareness.
Don't try to cast out to Spain.
Yeah, why? Right. So, and then, when they see, someone from the community is actually contributing, they're not just trying to get my business, then, you've created sort of a natural opportunity to have the profit-making conversation where it's appropriate, or the incentivizing conversation where, you get with the people who run this blog or who own this site, where you say, hey, can I put an ad up with a coupon to try to drive people to do my business. Like you can go big on digital but still be local, and I think that that's the way to approach it if you're a dry cleaner, one store in a specific local area.
Phenomenally put. Thank you for that. Vita.
Mine is stop looking at being a small business as a big problem, because it's not. It's not. What it means is you have a specific niche that you need to zone in on. So stop looking at being a small business as being a big problem. It's not. Just try to, it really goes back to kind of get in where you fit in and really look at things that you can do, double backing on the whole social media and using it in a more localized area rather than big. The thing is, you're not gonna, if you're a small business, you're not gonna have that manpower to begin with anyway. So make sure that if you have whatever allocated funds that you do have or whatever, manpower you do have, make sure that you're using it effectively. I also believe that when it comes to small businesses, there's something about it. If you're building a community, because I kind of keep getting thrown the audience question, building an audience, give them something to do. That's another thing. It's one thing once you build the audience, but you don't want them sitting there stagnant. In the tribe, it's manifested into meetups all over the world that are now really on a weekly basis. Or the trips. We have the RV tour and fundraising that's going on right now through
That's
crowdfunding.
engagement.
They want to do something. Once you have those people, you will lose them if they are just sitting there looking at each other, whether it's online or in person. You have to give them something to do and keep it innovative, keep it outside of the box. I mean, you give it kind of an unorthodox, the whole dry cleaning example. I'm a big person that's all about doing stuff outside of the box. If I was a small business owner for a dry cleaner, I'm like, hey, there's no dry cleaners that throw events. So maybe we should, I'm that type of person. You know what I'm saying? Maybe there's an event that we can throw that's kind of quirky, but kind of kitschy and
Stain tips.
Thank
How do
you.
you get out
You know what I'm
stains
saying?
for, certain
there's
fabrics or
so
high-end
many
whatever.
things. Think outside of the box and become innovative with things that you can do. And don't be scared, especially on a small level. Don't be scared to excuse my language. Don't be scared to fuck up. It's gonna happen. Let it happen and learn those lessons and take from it, because that's what you're gonna have to do to stand out from the rest. I mean, I'd throw a party. I would throw something like that and really give them something that's engaging.
For example, I have there's a fish fry place in my neighborhood, and I love fried fish and grilled fish and scrimps and whatnot. They're on Twitter, okay? It's the Bed-Stuy Fish Fry. Why are they on Twitter? They're Bed-Stuy. Because everybody in Bed-Stuy who wants fried fish can tweet them and follow them and be with them, right? So, I've literally tweeted them that I was coming over, and then they'll be like, yeah, great, we can't wait to see you. And then they'll be like, yeah, Put Your Dreams First came, and blah, 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 and we had this, that, and the third, we talked. So it's, just a personal relationship that happens
exchange adds so
digitally.
much value.
And,
Absolutely.
right, and they're not necessarily, I already know about them, so I guess on some level it creates a baseline awareness for people who don't know about them, because I retweet them when they tweet me, and then all my followers go, hey, that's how right? So like that.
All right, so now we're going to transition to the audience. We've got our AV up, and so I want to make sure that we give you guys a full scope of how powerful these young ladies
Yeah,
are.
do we need to
Just maybe over a little bit, but while I'm setting up the AV, we'll take a couple questions from the audience, and then we'll stop. Yes, sir?
Yes, I think you were speaking about, one, definitely love your energy. You spoke about you had, I think within 2 or 3 months, 1,000 members. I guess I still wasn't clear as to how that happened. I mean, was it that you had 1,000 friends? I mean, what was it? What was that thing? If you could identify that thing, that
Specific
sparked the
point.
thing. Yeah. What was that thing?
I started off with 100.
Okay.
That 100 came from my friends list, because again, the requirement is you have to have at least one passport stamp to get into the group.
Yes.
Which, let me segue really quick.
Yeah.
Exclusivity. If you can do something that adds exclusivity to what you're bringing, people love it. Because they want to feel like they're a part of something that not everybody can get into. I say we have tribe snobs, right? And those are the members who are like, I don't want none of my friends in here. This is my space. I'm a part of this group. This is what it is. I had at our very first meetup, we had one of our members who was a tribe snob run into one of her friends at the meetup that she didn't know was in it, and she just interrogated the hell out of him for the first 5. How do you know about this? I didn't put you in here. What are you doing here? And it's just one of those things where you cultivate that exclusivity, because there's even a hierarchy that we've created within the tribe. We have membership levels that are identified by cards. You know, we have white, black, and red members, and the red card members are like the upper echelon, but you gotta do some crazy stuff to get it. Like, the only red card members that we have in the tribe are people who ran with the Bulls in Pamplona when we went to Spain this past summer, and people that went cliff jumping when we were in Dominican Republic. So it's like they know what you have to
It's
do
extreme
to earn.
membership.
Exactly. Like, are you tough enough membership? You know, where it's like our black card members is if you get on one of the Nomadness X trips, which at this point has become a contest in and of its own because our trips sell out in about 10 minutes. Yeah.
Wow.
So it's one of those things, that exclusivity. If you give people something to fight for, like they need to earn a position into something, that's very enticing to them. To go back to your question, I'll be honest with you, I can't really say, I can't tell you if I can identify one thing. Because again, it's a closed group. If it was an open group, maybe I wouldn't be so surprised by it because you could just throw people in. I really do feel that the thing that makes the tribe so powerful is that people own it. It's a part of their lifestyle. It's a part of them. Nomadness is a travel brand, but it's a lifestyle brand. These people go in. Stephanie, sorry, I'm gonna shout you out. Somebody posted up, one of our members, Gardy, posted up a crazy sale for like less than $500 for a round trip to Istanbul. It wasn't a Nomadness X trip. He just put it in the tribe. Within minutes, people were jumping all over it, buying it, and they just got back from a meetup in Istanbul. And it's just, that's how quick it happens. Literally, if we didn't save spots on the trips for the guys, the women would buy, literally, the Vermont trip we sold out of in like 5 minutes. I mean, I sit there looking at the computer and watching all my stuff go off after I drop the information, and I'm like, I have to videotape this one day and show these people what I go through on the other end, because it's like, I'm in awe. So I can't tell you that there was one thing, but when you just have something that's so powerful, that people own it and they connect to it, your word of mouth is priceless, and you're not gonna have to do anything because they're gonna advertise for you.
And it kind of speaks back to the power of shared passion. You know, what we're talking about here is, and you guys are a great example of that, not divorcing your passion from your business. It actually works hand in hand. And I think that's what brings you closer to consumers, by not taking on the construct of a business, which is very formal, and you know, we do commerce, but more, no, this is our way of life, this is our thinking, this is why we got into this in the first place. Even if we were dry cleaners, maybe we're passionate about sustainability and green approaches, so we went into this type of business model that we want these types of patrons. So I think that's really relevant to kind of connect with. Do we have another question? Francine, and then here.
I just was gonna thank you both because everything that you said is, I just am finishing up Derek's class Thursday. And I've had my nonprofit for a long time, we just haven't really run it. And mine is all about passion. I work with inner city youth and I love what I do. And I don't know, something you said tonight, I wrote it down, but it just put the whole, it's all there, but it's my passion. And I've been trying the last 6 months to be so much more of a business. And I have 2 masters in social work, and that's what I'm good at. So I think you guys all tonight, I don't have to be something I'm not. I'm the it sells itself.
We're
Everyone knows
creatives.
Thank
We're
you.
creatives. I
That's
tell people
me.
all the time, I don't have a
Thank you so much.
MBA. I didn't go to school for business. I'm learning business as I'm creating one. Like, let's be clear with that, you know, and I'm gonna screw up. I'm still nervous to do my taxes this year. So let's be real. But that comes with the territory. Again, don't be scared, because the only way you're gonna know and learn is by doing it. That's it. But I tell people all the time, I do not have a business background. This has all come from me throwing myself out to the fire. I'm a creative that had an idea and decided, guess what, I'm gonna just do this and let's go.
And that's what creators do. We take something, we create a mess, and then we create something beautiful out of it. It's the process that's really the key. The process of what you're creating. I think that's where the beauty comes from, as far as in art and as in business. I think a lot of people are going to be able to respond to that. You, sir.
My question's a little complex but simple in answers. People being more direct about adding membership to your social media networks. Do you recommend sending out a mass email or something to say like, join us here to initiate? Like if you're at the complete foundation level, or do you just start posting things as that Facebook page or group and hoping that they'll read, share, and add it that way. So are you emailing like a database to initiate it, or are you just starting off raw and just hoping that people join by themselves without a call to action? And then the other part of that is, if you have this idea of exclusivity, and you're like, let's say you're targeting, like in my case, I'm a hospitality consultant. So if I'm targeting restaurateurs and management, but I'm also have services that are to actual restaurant staff members, those two targets wouldn't necessarily be in the same network. But I'm afraid of splitting the network and saying, oh, you only have 25 followers here and 85 followers
So
here.
let's
So
start right there.
that's
So you
where
got
I'm
you
at.
got two different segments. How would you guys approach that? Okay.
Well, I think you could take the sort of membership levels model that Avita talked about and apply it, but categorize it based on area. Like, if you're a restaurateur, then this part of it is for you. If you're a staff person, then this part of it is for you. And then you super serve those groups within that. Now, do you opt for a social network instead of a Facebook? Because a Facebook is sort of one page and as dimensional as you make it, and it's sort of a catch-all for everybody, no matter what area they're in.
That's a great point.
Maybe not. You might have to look into a social network situation and then take on the charge of creating membership and activating those members.
So could you give an example of a social network? Because that was actually one of the first, and that's new to me. I actually,
Yeah.
to kind of hear that the
You know-
Facebook page is kind of a catch-all, and it's not necessarily this kind of membership-driven kind of focus. What are you thinking of when you're thinking of that?
Well, I have to say that I'm a little out of touch in terms of what the new social network companies are, but the ones that I remember from the beginning of the social networking, sort of craze was Ning. And I don't know if Ning has now morphed into something else.
No, Ning is
there's a
still
new-
there, and
There's
it's
a new
still there.
generation of sites and social networks and
Ning-
media.
Ning.com.
Like every 3 years,
Got my mic on.
so who knows? They could have become Google by now. Like I
Yeah,
don't know.
Ning is rather comprehensive now, and it's actually one of the platforms that we've been looking at. Yammer is another one that I was just put onto by a guy in the tribe that actually works in IT. So there's a number that are out there. I would really do like a cold call, and like what you need to start off with really when it comes to building a social network is you need to look at like your hard and soft needs. What is an absolute necessity on your network, and what is something that you may grow into, but it isn't a necessity for you to like actually launch it. And that's really the way that we broke down the beginning of our platform. But see, the thing is, it's hard for me to kind of answer the beginning of your question. It is and it isn't. My personal answer when I started the tribe is there were no emails, no nothing. I used a network platform that people were already on, a la Facebook, and if people are already there, it's easier to get that engagement. It's easy for people to invite other members because again, it's a closed group. Now, I built that network, so now when I transition into my own social media network, we're gonna lose people inevitably, that's fine, but they're gonna come, and the people that don't, we're gonna get tenfold because of how big the tribe is growing. So what I did is I built the community first, and all I'm doing is shifting it, that's it. So, I mean, from the core, I wasn't emailing anyone. I was really I was going to them. When you're new, you can't assume people are gonna find you. You have to go to them. Find a way to get in front of their faces, to get it, whether it's a press release, you're showing up to events and they're actually looking at you personally, find a way to bring it to them. Nothing has taught me more about this than the Kickstarter crowdfunding campaigns that I've done over the last 3 years. To the point where I'm probably annoying, and I know people would probably block me. And it's like, but you have to do it. You can't assume that people know what you're doing, even if you're,
You definitely raise a
You're
great
consistent.
point because we talk about, the different types of strategies for marketing, and what you're kind of framing is push versus pull. Do I push aggressively out into the marketplace? Do I focus on building broad awareness, or do we kind of leverage marketing gravity, perhaps, and allow kind of the traffic to come to us organically? And I think there needs to be a balance. It really is dependent on the type of audience that you have.
Yes.
If they're actively, receptive to you pushing it in their face. Whereas, you know, if you're talking about B2B, because that's kind of what it sounds like, you're dealing with other businesses now. So that might actually be more of a pull where you're trying to be found as opposed to pushing in and saying, here I am, simply because the nature of B2C and B2B is quite different. So I think that also plays into exactly what actually comes out as far as strategy is concerned. We'll go right here, and then we're going to take a quick break to show you guys some of their work online.
Thank you very much. I appreciate both of you. I have a question. I work with, on my side, I'm also doing a film as well. I didn't know what I was doing. I came from broadcast. I had my own other stuff, doing a documentary project about musicians. And on the side with that, I've had, since I've been running into more and more musicians around the world, in connection with the people that I've been doing stuff with. They want me, oh, I want to do social media. I hear it's great. And what a lot of people don't realize, you're laughing because you already know what you're
Like you said, I want to do
Not.
social media, like, you know, I want to go swimming or something.
Exactly.
Like, are you sure? Do you know how to swim?
They don't want to do that. They want all the results of that, but then
Right.
they don't want to actually do any of the work that it requires, like you mentioned. Not a lot of artists and musicians, and also the small business owners. They don't understand a lot of that. They don't understand that engagement is key. You have to be involved.
And it's labor intensive.
And it is very labor intensive, but it will pay off. You can't write off a lot of that stuff to someone else. I don't have a copywriter to do some of this. You have to and have some of that personal involvement as well. If you don't, it's not there. You've already said Nas doesn't want to come, really doesn't want to do X, Y, or Z. How have you been able to try to get some of the artists that maybe you work with involved in, especially Twitter, or you don't have to do anything with Foursquare or the rest of it, Facebook? How have you been able to persuade some artists, some of them can't, that's not going to happen, and some seem to be
Well, I actually haven't, because now, you
You
know,
got really big
in
people.
working with the network, like, you know, each television show has its own Facebook page and has its own Twitter handle. So it's something that the network is committed to as part of its digital agenda. Now, if I take it back to my Sony time period, one of the artists who, you know, was fiercely entrepreneurial just from soup to nuts, from how he made music to how he sold music, was Curtis, 50 Cent. So I worked on his first album campaign, Power of the Dollar, and what he learned from his experience in Columbia, where, you know, they were a little skittish after he got shot 9 times, they're like, we don't know about this putting out a record thing with you, so it's been real. So they parted ways, not amicably, but he decided to become an independent artist out of that, created those mixtapes, sort of recreated himself as sort of the king of New York on these mixtapes that really gave artists like Nas and Jay-Z like some comp without having a major label backing him. And he took that approach online as well. He immediately created a social network called ThisIs50.com. Huge social network. It's not just a website. People are members. I mean, I don't know, he's probably way deep in the 6 figures in terms of membership now. But he did that because he was like, you know what, I'm gonna need a platform to put all my independent stuff up there. And I don't wanna have to rely on anyone else to give me that. And at that time, record companies were still sort of in their attachment to brick and mortar. So they were more committed to, you know, the HMVs of the world, the Virgins and the Towers of the world, than they were to building websites to purvey digital content. And as you see, the consequences of that have been felt to disastrous outcomes. And I talk a lot about that in my book about the entertainment industry, which you did not mention, but it's called Put Your...
Didn't get a chance to, but
That's
get
all
ready
right.
to.
Oh, snap, okay.
Yeah, I got you all queued up.
No, so I won't say anything about that, but it's totally realistic to say, you know what, I'm gonna do this myself. But it's also the rabbit hole. So at a certain point, you have to remember, like, how much time you're gonna, you know, invest in it, and at what point are you gonna need someone to come in and help you? That someone could be an intern in the beginning, who just, you know, has an IT understanding or is in school for that. But at some point, you don't wanna lose yourself as a business person doing social media, right?
To the point about the intern, one quick announcement to the point about the intern. We are here on a college campus, so I do want to make sure that folks know that we do have a great relationship with young people that are looking to work with small companies. Actually, Vanguard is working in partnership with the Center for Entrepreneurship here. Dr. Joanne Scalito, who's in the audience, she runs the Center for Entrepreneurship. We thank her for her participation. And part of the collaboration is to connect our small companies with young talent that's looking to provide their expertise and their energy to your business. So stay tuned, we got more information about that coming forward. One last point, and then I want to transition into their media reels.
So 50 was good at it. He's somebody who totally got it and jumped into it.
Yeah.
Talking about people in the middle and on the other end, you have experience with trying to pull them into it, because that's the insight I'd like to get, because that's working for the team.
Not at this point. I would have to say that I'm not actively engaged in trying to lead those horses, those proverbial horses to water. Like, either you want to do social media or you don't, and it's just a matter of how are you going to insert yourself. There are some artists who are more interested in other platforms like your Tumblr or your Pinterest as opposed to Twitter or Facebook, and there are some that, you know, don't do any of it. Like Whoopi Goldberg, like she had to be dragged kicking and screaming to get on Twitter because she as an individual just doesn't do technology. She doesn't even like using computers. So some people are just not interested, and for every one of them, there's 1,000 of the ones who are,
because they get it.
and you don't have to worry about, you know, trying to enroll people that aren't into it if, you know.
And to Evita's point, they get it, this idea, that's why we have forums like this, to kind of raise awareness, that there's a whole market out there that's getting it. And there's a new way of doing business, and that's what this whole conversation is about, that's what our series is about. So we want to make sure that people, you know, it doesn't mean that they have to change their business model, but eventually when the market changes, they're going to have to adapt in order to keep relevant. So that's, thank you for that. Now what we're going to do is just kind of give you guys the introduction that we wanted to give you early on. We had some challenges with AV, but we wanted to share with you first Tembisa's sizzle reel, which almost acts like a great biography. So I like it, it's in media. And then we're going to transition to the Nomadness tribe and all of their glory. So let's go ahead.